In the world of small business, we know so many things can be unpredictable. What's our plan? How do we make sure all of the hard work that we've done and our families that we help support, how do we make sure everyone's going to be okay? With so many different recent events going on and the unpredictability of life, I want to take some time and talk about a subject that doesn't get a lot of attention, at least from my perspective. So here in a moment, I'm going to show you a conversation that Shayne and I have had together, and I really hope at minimum that it is helpful and maybe get you thinking a little bit, and I hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, so I am here today with Shayne Keebler. Shayne, thanks for taking time out to be here with me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So we've known each other now for, almost 10 years,
yes,
I think.
Yes.
Or somewhere right around there.
Yep.
And so Shayne actually does all of my investment stuff that I have and all of that. And although we're not giving out any sort of financial advice today, just for entertainment purposes only, there's a very important subject that I wanted to bring up that when I talked to Shayne about it in 2014-ish, I was quite shocked. And I think that we should have a good conversation about it.
Absolutely.
So essentially, what happens in business, right? So small business owners, right, rely on their small business for their income.
Correct.
And at the same time, the small business relies on their owner as well, right? For like personal guarantees. And really, the owner and the business are essentially a lot of times one. The difference is there's just a legal entity.
Correct.
And so what happens when life happens? And that's a conversation that you and I had after we had met in 2014.
Correct.
And when you started talking to me about it back then, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And that's this. What happens when you get disabled?
Well, unfortunately, statistically, 1 out of 4 people in the country, in the event of an emergency, an illness, an accident that deems them unable to go do or perform their job, would wipe them out, would devastate them within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They just don't have the financial resources. And, I'm sure as you can attest to, and myself as a small business owner as well, when you're first starting out, pretty much all of your revenue is going back into the business, right?
Yeah.
And your job is to provide not only for the business, but all of your employees as well. So you have some big responsibilities and some sleepless nights in the event that if you can't work, how does the business make money? And It just doesn't. And that's where disability insurance can come into place and cover that.
Yes. Yep. And so is what I ended up doing. And throughout this talk here, I'm going to be talking about myself and my own type of policy. It's just, I think it's easier and the most transparent. And so essentially the topic that Shayne and I got on years ago, and what really honestly brings this up for me is that being in we sell to a lot of locksmiths, right, in the lock and key industry.
Yes.
And so you see, a lot of one-person operations, 1 or 2 person operations.
Sure.
And what happens is you see something bad happens. Life.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And when that happens, you a lot of times see the entire business go away, sold for pennies on the dollar, and you see that person struggle. And it sucks.
Yeah, that's sad.
It honestly sucks.
Yeah, it does.
And so why I wanted to talk about this is because of that situation, ways that we can actually protect.
Sure.
And I'm going to talk about myself here. So like for me, I'm a 1 income household.
Right.
So if I were to get disabled and not be able to work, I have problems.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the majority of the business owners.
Yeah.
Right? The business is reliant on you.
It's reliant on me. Mm-hmm. Right? One way or another, at the end of the day, it's going to be reliant on me.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so if I maybe have a heart attack, a stroke, get into a bad car accident. You just don't. Of course, I hope none of those things ever happen.
Right.
But to not have some sort of plan in place for that is a major risk factor for me.
Yes.
And not only all the staff I have in my businesses, but also for my own wife and kids.
Correct.
And so is what we ended up talking about is something called income disability insurance, which is something I've had now for quite a while.
Right.
And well, listen, I'm not saying that I think everyone should have it, okay? But I went a decade in business without even knowing it existed. And when we talked about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm scared now. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, the thing of it is as we're younger, I remember when I first started in business, I didn't even think I needed health insurance, right? We all have this big S on our chest, right? It's just, we're Superman, we're never going to get sick, nothing's ever going to happen to us. And we all have that same mentality until something does happen, or you see somebody else, like you said, you've seen, companies that have been sold for pennies on the dollar because something happens, a car accident, a sickness, something. Right? And there's no protection there. And again, when you're putting all of those resources back into the business to keep it going, buying inventory, advertising, whatever it might be, a lot of people, especially early on in your business, you just don't have that nest egg set aside for the emergency purposes. And again, that's where the disability insurance comes in. And one of the questions that I think, or responses I see a lot from people too, is they say, well, I have Social Security disability insurance. If something happens to me, Social Security will kick in and they'll cover me for my family.
Okay.
The challenge with that is that statistically, the average income from Social Security disability is about $1,200. Okay.
Okay.
The other issue with that is that in order to qualify for Social Security disability insurance, you really can't have any assets. You can have $2,000 in the bank. You can keep your house, a car, and a burial plot, and your wedding ring, and that's pretty much it. So you're kind of out of luck, in that you kind of sell everything off in order to get those benefits, and that's not the situation you want to be.
As you're actually saying that, the guy I sold my wife's old car to,
yes,
just a few weeks ago, he was actually he has like only 15% of his heart working. And he went to get on disability, and he was talking about the fact that they said he had too much stuff, which is essentially so you couldn't get it,
right? And
so that's why he was buying my wife's old car, is like this financial, whatever it was. But
yeah, it's not. I mean, it's definitely not where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're on Social Security disability income, basically you've spent and sold off everything in order to be qualified
in order to do that,
because it is a Medicaid program. So I mean, it's a welfare program that's in place.
Yeah.
And you have to be pretty much in dire straits in order to qualify and get that. And then even at that, the average benefit's about $1,200 a month, and that's just not enough to live on.
Yeah. So I want to run through like the actual policy I have here for a minute, the high level, and then I want to rewind and I kind of want to ask you a few different questions for anyone who's watching to maybe get them a little bit more familiar.
Sure.
Now, I definitely want to say that like I'm a person that like I want the least amount of insurance as I could possibly have, right?
Yes,
so like
absolutely.
I'm definitely not an insurance happy person by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
Although, as I run through this process, I think it'll make sense to a lot of people, and hopefully it'll be helpful to others here. So, so on my policy that I have, right? So you can have what percentage of income can you get this for? Because you can't go 100%.
Right. So generally, most policies are 60% is the maximum amount of benefit. So if you have $100,000 a year income, the maximum benefit would be $60,000 a year that you would be able to qualify for.
And is that money? So let's say it happens, and in this scenario, you'd get $60,000 a year.
Yes.
Is that money taxed?
So that's a great question. So there's a couple of different ways that works. If you, let's just, to make it simple, if you are paying those premiums, then yes, the money that you're receiving is not taxable. If you're on a group plan through an employer, so let's just say you as the employee are offering a group plan to your employees, and you're paying those premiums, once the employee starts to receive those benefits, they do become taxable. So that's the difference. And the bottom line, to keep it easy, is if you're paying the premium out of your own pocket, the money coming back to you is tax-free.
Okay.
If the employer's paying it, then it's taxable.
So if you look at like what your income looks like on paper compared to that 60%, that's not being taxed, that money. It's actually more than that.
Correct.
It can kind of be close to your take-home pay.
Absolutely.
For simplicity's sake.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So with that being said, for like the policy type that I have, right? So if I were to have a mental breakdown,
Yep.
where which might happen after reading the comments, right? But having a mental breakdown where I couldn't perform my task,
Yes.
my job here, or let's say unfortunately I had a stroke or something and I just wasn't competent to do that.
Correct.
I would be able to get that percentage of income that I've been paying.
Correct.
Every month.
Absolutely.
And why that's important to me is that it does a few things. What I know that I have 3 kids. My youngest is 6. And so I have a lot of years left of making sure I have income.
Yes.
To raise the kids.
Yes.
Right? And beyond that, I'm going to be able to have that income up until I'm 65.
Correct.
Or if I have a recovery where I can work again.
Yes. So basically the coverages, and there's different policies.
There's different policies.
Yeah. So there's a short-term version policy that has coverage extension up to like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then there's a long-term policy or long-term disability like the one that you have.
Yeah.
And that is for benefits over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so depends on what you're trying to insure for, obviously. Yes. But in your case, like you said, you've got young kids and, there's a lot of years before they go off to college and they're able to be self-sufficient and being in the industry on their own. And so 2 years or less on a short-term disability policy wouldn't do you any good.
No.
Right? So a long-term benefit is really what you would need in that regard.
Yes. And at the same time, so my family is now protected.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then what it also does is, for me, in my perspective, is it allows so I'm not gonna be here. Right? Some other person's gonna be sitting here.
Absolutely.
At the camera, right?
Yes.
Now there's income there's money freed up, my old salary, to hire someone.
Correct.
Right? Because it's one of those things that even in a worst case scenario, it would take months to be able to sell the businesses if I wanted to.
Yes.
At the same time, it would suck that because I had a personal problem that all of the staff that's in this building that has spent a decade plus with me now has to go find a new job. That's terrible for them.
Yes.
And I'd hate to put all of these families' lives in jeopardy and problems and because I have problems.
Right. The other thing to that too is just kind of, talking about the long-term portion of it. So think about it. There's some short-term issues that can come up. I have a client that recently, just mid-40s, was just diagnosed with an aortic root valve and has to go in for a major surgery. It could be up to a 6-month recovery. We know he's going to be fine. He's got the best doctors and the surgeries have gone well, but he's unable to go back to work. So the thing of it is the coverage isn't just for, you're knocked down and you can never go back to work, right? So it would also cover the coverage, or your income from that would cease to come in once you recover and able to go back to your job, or when the coverage runs out. So in that particular event, he's going to be down maybe 3 to 6 months. But that, like you said, it's going to allow somebody else to step in your shoes, keep the business running. Instead of having to think about a liquidation and just selling everything off, you're still going to allow everybody to be employed and the business is going to work. Now, is it going to take some time to ramp somebody up to do your job? Yes, there's going to be a little bit of, there's probably going to be some pain in trying to get that done. But
it's not going to be perfect, but there's going to be at least money there.
Absolutely.
For them to do that.
Correct.
Right?
Run the business.
Run the business.
And take care of your personal finances.
Yes. Right? And there's also, I know on my policy, there's even something, and I know it's possible out there, I could actually go get some sort of different job that I would be able to do.
Correct. And that's a great point. So there's different types of policies. And then in that it covers you and you come off the coverage if you're unable to do your own job. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's your own job coverage in a sense, and then there's any job coverage. So,
Yeah.
so like if you can't do any job, it covers. If you can't do your job, give you an example, a doctor, right? If you're a surgeon and all of a sudden you injure your hand, you're out skiing and you have an accident, you injure your hand, and it's a 6-month recovery for you to come back, that's a problem, right? You're unable to do your job, but he could still do a job.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he could perform a duty, consulting, something like that. So there are different types of coverages
that you can look at.
Absolutely.
Which is important. But I think the thing I love most about it is that if something were to happen like that of course it would be outside of my control.
Yes.
I at least have some sort of plan in place that I know my family is going to be able to. I mean, listen, with the coverage we have, like, it's not like I'm going to be necessarily living the same life I live today.
No, absolutely not.
But it's going to allow us to still live in our house and live a fairly normal life still.
And that's the thing, because there's already a lot of emotional stress that's put on the family because of the change, right? The whole dynamics of the family changes. Now all of a sudden dad's home. What's dad doing home? Right?
Yeah.
You're not there. The family dynamic shifts. But if there's also a financial burden on that could lead to
next thing you know, the house is up for sale or this, or and it starts getting just not what anybody wants.
Absolutely.
Really, right?
Absolutely.
And so I really enjoy and I think like when we first talked about it, when I first met you through a mutual friend.
Yes.
And we sat down and I showed you everything I had, and then you were like, and you started kind of asking some of these questions. Like, I mean, it freaked me out a little bit. I'm like,
wasn't
but I'm like, I'm not really planning on having any severe problems happen to me. And the truth is, statistically, probably not.
Right.
Right. But it makes me feel better, especially as over the years, more and more staff. I'm like, and I guess I want to say this, like, there's a difference between like selling a business and someone wanting to buy a business.
Correct.
Right? And so anytime, like, if the worst thing happened, I didn't have this, and let's just say, I'm like, listen, there's no one here, like, I mean, it's just going to have to be sold.
Yes.
The amount of money I'm going to get compared to if someone wanted to buy is a lot different.
Here's the example that I use. So let's say I have my house up for sale, okay? And I really don't care to sell it. It's just I'm going to test the market, put my feet in the water a little bit and see what the market's going to bring. And you come to me and you offer me 20% under what I'm asking. Thanks, PJ, but I mean, I kind of like my house. I really don't have to go anywhere. Versus I get a letter from the bank that says you have to sell your house by this date or we're taking it. I'm going to take any offer you give me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a matter of being in the driver's seat and having that negotiating power, or somebody else having that negotiating power.
Yeah.
And basically it's not going to fix everything, but it just gives you the ability to have a little bit more control of your life and to be able to make the decisions instead of somebody else doing it for you.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, let's kind of get into a little bit of the details as kind of much as we can. And first thing I want to talk about is price.
Yes.
Right? People watching and listening, but like, that might be nice, but like, I am a small business guy. I'm running all the time, trying to grow my business. I have all my expenses, and like, I don't necessarily have a bunch of extra money, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, I do know from my own experience, like, for the coverage that I have to the price that I'm paying, I feel is extremely reasonable.
Yes.
But that might be because I'm in my 30s.
Yep.
And, and the amount of coverage I'm getting is just enough to where I know my family is going to be okay.
Correct.
Not like I'm going to live the way I live today.
Correct.
Right? Because I didn't even get the 60%. I think I got a lot less than that.
You did, but there was a rider that was built into yours that has an inflation rider, so it does increase over time as well.
Yeah. What's like I don't know, is there a rule of thumb or someone who's like, it's like, I've never actually heard of the, an income disability insurance is what the name of it.
Correct. There's really, as far as to say there's a blanket, it's going to be X percent or a certain dollar amount. Everybody's is going to be a little bit different. Basically for us, what we do, we've been doing holistic planning for over 25 years. And basically what does that even mean, right? We look at everything, right? So not just you come in and say, I want you to do my investments. Perfect. Well, we leave everything else aside, right? So we look at it as like building a house, right? You have to have a solid foundation to put the house up, or the house is going to crumble, right?
Yeah.
And the insurances or some of the safety features is that foundation, right? So we kind of look at that foundation of the life insurance, the health insurance, the disability insurance. And we look at need base, right? And so we're going to look at all those things first. But when it comes to, trying to figure out a price, we use a specialized arm. So we have a team that's built, and they look at just disability coverages. So we're not a captive agency. So basically we can shop that out to all of the different carriers in the country.
Okay.
And we look at, best price based on each individual person. And so we'll shop that out, and then we'll take usually like the top 3 or 4 carriers, all A or better rated, and then we'll look at which is going to make the most sense for you, your situation. Everybody's a little bit different. So pricing, I'll tell you, a doctor, a surgeon that, use that example again, theirs is going to be extremely high, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're insuring to only be able to do their job and they injure their hand, they can't do anything else. Right. If it's
their job,
if they're insuring for
it's very
their
true.
job only,
Yes.
right? So in that sense, then yes, the coverage is going to be more expensive than somebody that insures. Let's just say for me, I work at a desk all day long.
Yeah.
It's sad, but I could get in a car accident and be a paraplegic in a wheelchair. I can still perform my duties.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So
the risk level's lower.
yeah, absolutely. Right.
Okay. Yeah. From the insurance perspective.
Yeah. If I'm pretty active, I do a lot of sports, everything else. When I get an injury, I go to the doctor and they're like, whatever, take some ibuprofen and suck it up, right? Because you sit behind a desk.
Yeah.
You're not a professional athlete that needs to go out and play every day.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of risk versus reward a little bit too.
So it's going to vary quite a bit.
It will. And then it's also going to depend on what percentage, like you said. We can go up to 60%, but if you're at 40%, premiums are going to be less.
Yeah.
Right. Age is a factor. That's also going to come into play. I'm 53, so mine's probably going to be more expensive than yours.
Sure.
Okay. So those are the things, but we take all of those things into consideration, and then we run those numbers to try to come up with something that is affordable and makes sense within your budget.
Okay. And so I guess with that being said, right now, I know, of course, if you're watching and you're interested in this and you're in Idaho, or is there any other states that you...
We're pretty much licensed in every state in the country.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'll in the show notes, I'll put Shayne's information where you can reach out if you want. But let's say they don't, and they just want to go to someone local.
Yep.
Where would they, what are they Googling to find someone? And more importantly, when they do, I've known you through a mutual friend,
sure.
Right? So when he told me, and our mutual friend is very particular.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so when he was like, hey, you need to at least go talk to Shayne, if not move all your stuff to him.
Right.
I was like, hey, I know this guy does not play around.
Very true.
And so I'm like, so I kind of came highly recommended. And so it was easy for me.
Yes.
But if someone doesn't have that, how do you find someone? B, how can you kind of feel out if the policy is okay?
So some of the things that I would look for really is one, I kind of briefly touched on this as far as captive agency, and there's nothing wrong with a captive agency. It's just you
mean that's one that it's a big brand insurance company, and they only sell what that brand offers, is what you're saying by captive.
Yes. So I'll give you the analogy of I walk into a shoe store and I wear a size 10 and all they have is size 9 shoes. Right? They're the size 9 shoe store.
Okay.
And they're going to cram me into that size 9 even though I have a 10. Right.
Gotcha.
That's, and not to take anything away from them. They're all good companies, and, as long as it's an A or better rated carrier, fine. Unfortunately, they just don't have the ability to shop around and look for different benefits and features because they're always changing.
So it's what I hear you say is that all of these captive agencies, they are good companies.
Absolutely.
But you don't know if you're their preferred customer.
Correct.
Right? Because every insurance company has their target market.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though they do a lot more.
Absolutely.
And so if you you might have to go to a few of those and really try to get prices, or
Yes.
go to someone that can shop.
Right. And so a broker in your area is someone that is not captive and has the ability to be contracted with multiple insurance companies and look at several different options to try to dial in what's going to be best for you. Because what's best for me as an investment advisor might not be what's best for you, and might not be, what's best for the guy that works at an oil rig, or the doctor, or the accountant, or whatever, right? Everybody's situation's a little bit different. And so that's why we use our back office team to say, okay, here is the situation. And I could literally submit 2 different applications of, two very like-minded people, business owners, but they're 2 completely different businesses, and different carriers are going to come back as what's going to be the best option for you. So as far as what you're looking for is someone that can shop around and find where you don't have to go to all these different carriers and look. They can do that in-house for you and give you some options. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to print out, we're going to say, okay, well, these are the top 3 carriers and here's why. Here are the bells and whistles of this one, kind of like going and buying a new car. Right. So there's different benefits and features to each one, and some may make sense for you, and they may not make sense for the guy next to you. Right. So that's basically what we do. And that's, if you're looking for something at a local provider, I would look for somebody that actually is a broker that has options, and they can shop that out to several different people to find what's best for you.
And what would they Google? Like income disability insurance provider?
And you can do insurance broker is kind of a good Google search.
And do a lot of places who like do car insurance also potentially do it? Or is it more like on the investment?
It is on the, home, auto, commercial. So usually if they offer commercial insurance, if it's your property and casualty type agency, if they do commercial insurance, it's going to be more along the business lines. Okay. If they're just a personal lines insurance company, they're probably going to focus more on just like the home and auto type of stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, perfect. Yeah, so that's what you search. That's kind of what you know to look for. Yes. Sometimes you can shop, or at minimum, go to some of the what's the word for them? Captive carriers. You have to go to a few different ones and kind of feel out. Yes. Find where that is.
Right. And you're not you hit it right on the head. I mean, they're not everybody specializes in this one area. I don't specialize in this area, and that's why I've built a collaborative team that does, right? And so that's kind of the other thing that I guess what I would say is to look for is to somebody that actually can, doesn't, they're not the jack of all trades, right? And master of none. You have to have somebody that really knows and understands what we're looking for. Yeah. And that's why I use that team, because I don't pretend to know everything about this. But I lean on them to say, hey, this is PJ's situation. This is what he's trying to cover for. And what is it that we need to do? And then between, myself and my team, we can dial it in to make sure it's exactly what is the best situation for you.
Okay. Is there anything that I haven't asked or we've had a conversation about you think that might be worth hitting on?
I would say like the workers' comp too. I guess that's the one thing that I did want to hit on that I had in my notes is people say, well, we talked about Social Security. I could get on Social Security disability. You also, you're required to carry workers' comp insurance for your employees. Most people don't realize it, but it doesn't cover the business owner.
No, it's so weird, isn't it?
It's very weird. You have to pay this premium, and it doesn't cover you as the owner. So, but there's this misconception with some people that they're like, well, yeah, I pay that premium, and I include when I fill out my sheet every year as far as what the payroll is. My payroll is on that, but it doesn't cover you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest misconception, or the two that I see is Social Security disability will cover me, and workers' comp will cover me. And that, just Social Security disability, it absolutely will at some point. It's very difficult for you to qualify for, and you can't have any assets when you do. Yeah. So that's the worst case scenario, and workers' comp just will not cover you.
Yeah.
So.
It's just a cold, hard dose of reality.
It really is
what that is.
It really is. Yes.
But yeah. So, anyways, well, Shayne, I honestly really appreciate. So I've been asking you to come on and kind of talk about this because as I've seen some tragedies that have happened in the lock and key industry.
Yes.
I'm like, I know it's not for everybody, and I know some people maybe won't be able to afford it today, or they'll get a quote and they're not going to like the price. I mean, there's so many variables, but I'm like, I didn't know about it for the first 10 years in business.
Right.
And I'm guessing there might be some other people that have never really known or considered it.
Right.
And, and as we've now talked about my own policy and kind of what that looks like for me, I just want to make sure everyone watching or listening at least knows about it.
Yes. And then I think there's a lot of people that have life insurance because they're planning for what happens if I die. Yeah. But what happens if you don't? Right. And that's the thing, because yes, that $100,000, $250,000, $500,000 life insurance policy, great. That's going to be there for your family to protect them in the event that you pass away. But what if you don't from that accident or the heart attack or whatever? Yeah. And so it's that situation of what happens if I live and I need that income, but I can't work anymore. And we see it too often. So the only thing I would just say is it might, like PJ said, it might not be for you. It might not be affordable right now. But absolutely, you're not committed to anything. So I would at least shop it and try to figure out what it would be for your situation and how much it's going to cost you. So see if you can fit it into your budget.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, very good. Hey, definitely let me know or let us know in the comments below any questions you have. I'll definitely try to give you my uneducated answers now. But but really, we'd love to know. And if you already have this, I would love to know. Like if you have any wisdom to provide in the comments, definitely throw it in there and let everybody learn what your experience is. So
absolutely, because I mean, the thing of it is, and one of the reasons I say use an A-rated carrier, you don't know how good of a policy you have until it comes time to actually get a benefit from it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because and it's sad, but it's even like FDIC insurance on the investment side of things. For years, I talked about, well, this is how FDIC insurance worked, but I bet you for the first 15 years of my career, I never saw it happen. Right. And then in 2008, 2009, when we had the economic crash, then there were 114 banks that closed in 2009.
Yeah.
We saw how FDIC insurance worked.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's good to know. So like you said, I mean, people that can comment, if you have this and you've had to go on claim because you've had an injury or an illness, that'd be great to see.
It really would.
Kind of what your results are.
It really would. And the cool part is I didn't even know that you have licenses in almost all the states.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. That. So we'll make sure we'll put your info if someone would like to contact you in the notes below. And it's Shayne Keebler with Great Northern Wealth Management.
Great Northern Wealth Management, or at gnwealth.com.
Cool.
Okay.
Good stuff. Well, Shayne, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Here, come over here and just say, hey, Lock Bosses. You wanted to be on camera.
I know, but I said in my own video.
Oh, in your own video?
Yeah.
Not on one of my videos?
No.
And you say your last name, Keebler?
Keebler, like the cookies.
Yep. Go on. Say a good way, brother.
Yeah. It's just spelt wrong.
Hey, congratulations, you've made it to the end of the video. You probably deserve a medal, maybe a plaque. But hey, I want to make sure that when you're commenting that you're including the hashtag Lockboss. When you do, you automatically get entered in to win one of 5 free prizes we're giving away each week here live on YouTube on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. We'll see you in the comments.